Okay, good morning, Tiffany and Andy. It's a pleasure to meet with you. You're representing the UVSA Eastern Canada, so that's the Vietnamese Student Association for Ontario and Eastern Canada.
Yeah,
Welcome to the Spirit of Vietnam.
thank you.
Could you say a few words about yourself and the organization, starting with you, Tiffany?
Yeah, sure. Minji, just to start off, I thank you for inviting us to be part of your podcast. We're really happy to be here. I'm Tiffany Tran. I'm currently the External Vice President for the United Vietnamese Students Association of Eastern Canada. And I don't know, Andy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Andy Fan, and I'm the External Relation Officer. So I've been working with Tiffany the past year to reach out to our sponsors and develop like a long-term relationship with them. So do you want to talk about the UVSA?
Yeah, so our organization, the United Vietnamese Students Association of Eastern Canada, we're a nonprofit and we're dedicated to celebrating Vietnamese culture, empowering and unifying the Vietnamese Canadian community as a whole, and cultivating future leadership from the Vietnamese Students Association in universities across Eastern Canada. So we are actually one in 14 regions associated with the entire North American Vietnamese Students Association. And with this year, we've had to take an entirely digital platform to run our events and communicate with one another. And it turned out quite fantastic. So people like you and me, you're from Ottawa and we're from Toronto, we can have this discussion.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tiffany, you were with which university?
I was with University of Toronto.
Okay. And Andy?
And I'm going to my fourth year at McMaster University in Hamilton.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, the purpose for this interview today is primarily to discuss one of the hot topics these days, which is anti-Asian racism. And it's kind of fitting too that we have the discussion in May, which happens to be Asian Heritage Month. Every year, as you know, this is the month where we celebrate Asian heritage. So on the topic of racism, anti-Asian racism, I wanted to check with you from UVSA what you have heard and what you have encountered. This actually started probably more than a year ago, primarily in the US, but now the phenomenon of prejudice and racism against Asians, that's also documented in Canada, such as by Statistics Canada. There has been a rise in incidents involving Asians. So, obviously it started in the US, but then it also spread to Canada, so to speak. So what has been your experience, Tiffany and Andy?
So I have noticed a rise in anti-Asian discrimination since the beginning of the pandemic, and I've seen it in like little personal things and on a local scale and on a bigger scale. So for the little things, it's like I'm out doing grocery shopping and then a woman sees me and she turns and faces herself into the aisle or into the shelves, you know. And I know it's very passive aggressive, but like to be honest, at the same time, I liked the space. But at that time, I thought it was important for me not to give in to the hate and not to speak up. And I'm not so sure if that's still the right thing to do. I've had my fair shares of racist comments growing up in Toronto, which is really sad, actually. And even, you know, early on in the pandemic, there was a huge boycott towards all Chinese businesses in Toronto, like specifically Chinatown. But not all businesses in Chinatown are Chinese. Most of them are pho shops or banh mi stores. So.
Okay.
I have also noticed like especially on social media where like there are people making hurtful remarks or like racist comments against the Asian community. And I've also heard that there are temples that are vandalized with like spray paints, or the statues in front were destroyed for vandalism. And yeah.
Okay.
And the more the pandemic went on, I've seen such violent, harmful, it's so horrendous and violent attacks. I really can't fathom that someone could be so cruel to another human being. And the more I see these videos that come out and read the news, I'm so afraid of going out myself. And I'm afraid, especially for my older parents, I don't want them to go out, even if it's just a 2-minute walk to the grocery store. I prefer to go with them and stay on hyper alert.
Okay.
Yeah.
And given that it's become, quite severe, do you find that the authorities, the different, levels of government are doing enough to address the issue?
I think there were a lot of incidences that were not labeled as a hate crime, even though I think it should be. But I think they are having a task force dedicated to hate crimes. I don't know. I think a lot of other groups, like, I don't know how effective this will be, because it kind of hurts other minority groups because they didn't get such treatment.
Especially for like Tiffany said, that there were crimes that are obviously targeted against Asians, but they were not labeled as hate crimes due to the current, law that the perpetrator has to show some like a clear motive that they were targeting. They had like a history in the past with the victim. And something that's good is that so Joe Biden recently just passed a bill on COVID-19 hate crime in the States that had like a system specifically focus on hate crimes and so focus on them, so that we can make sure that we can protect our like vulnerable population. And we're hoping that we will have something similar in Canada. It's obviously a different, the Canadian and the US system are different, but we're looking forward to something similar.
I know Justin Trudeau publicly spoke out against, these kinds of actions, and he condemned them, but I don't know if there's enough to go around and enforce it. Especially, there's still so much hateful rhetoric online, and I feel like it kind of triggers everyone to keep doing these actions.
Yeah. So there's something being done, but there should be more concrete actions. I guess that's what you're saying, and probably stricter laws against these acts of discrimination and so on. There's always a gray zone where it's hard to really decide whether it's racism or not, and that's where people might be able to get away with, and then it's difficult to interpret, it's ambiguous, and that's where it's difficult to decide whether you should take action or not. But definitely, more official attention and probably more media attention on the matter would definitely help, I would say.
And I think it goes toward all communities as well. Like, I think recently someone was harassing someone who went to the mosque. The whole day they were harassing. And then the guy called the cops, and the cops said, this guy's not doing anything, but there is going to be something. This harassment goes for all communities, not just ours.
Like the malicious intentions were there, but it wasn't recognized as like a hate crime because we didn't have any like any tangible law that were like put out there. So like you said, there were actions, but they need to be more concrete, so that we can reduce and eliminate the hate crimes.
Okay. Now to the somewhat broader question, about Canada's multicultural model that we keep hearing about, where different communities get to retain their cultural heritage more, and that's actually celebrated more. I think in Canada, as opposed to in the US, where people, immigrants, newcomers are encouraged to assimilate more and be part of the melting pot, so to speak.
So, oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, my question is, how's the multicultural model working in light of the fact that there is now these currents of racism?
So fun fact: the Canada 150 anniversary logo, the maple leaf with lots of colors on it, was designed by Ariana Cuban, a Filipino Canadian, and she said that each color on the different color on a different plate represents the diversity and the different culture that made up Canada. So in a sense, you were mentioning the melting pot model in the United States. So in Canada, it would be closely resembled to the salad bowl model, where different component make up different from different culture, make up different sensations, and together we make like a refreshing and another look at the country. It's like melting and assimilating together and become one as a melting pot model. So your question is in the light of racism against the Asian community. This model came in handy because the salad bowl model, because we've been celebrating the multicultural concept in Canada for a very long time. And especially during this time, it is important for all communities to come together and stand against racism, no matter which minority is being targeted. It's good. It's always good to have everyone stand together and come together and stand against like harassment. We know a lot of Vietnamese Student Association from a university across within the region, Eastern Canada region, have been releasing statements or movement that help with standing up against racism, and a lot of them involving the Asian club within a university come together to have charities or raise awareness for that situation. And it is a bit more different in the States when, like you said, they prefer the melting pot model where the immigrant culture will assimilate to the mainstream of the more popular culture in the States. And to talk about the various differences between Canada and the States, why each model were applied.
I think Toronto is, the most diverse city in the world, and it's the prime example of the salad bowl model. And I've grown up here and I was born here, and I have so many different friends from different cultures. I'm humbled by each of them. Every culture has a different layer and identity. For example, you're a refugee in Syria at this time versus a Syrian who's been here. It's so complex. It's so beautiful. And even within our Vietnamese community, there are more than 50 ethnic groups in Vietnam alone, right? We can't lump our people, we can't lump people together. So I don't think we're off the hook yet. I think, you know, we officially adopted cultural pluralism or the salad bowl model only in 1971. I think that's a good step. But I think at the end of the day, we need to have more minorities have a seat at the table when we make rules and policies for everyone else to really reflect our beautiful and diverse multicultural country.
Okay, so that from your views, then it sounds like that's the way to go, that we should retain our multicultural model and if anything expand and to benefit most from the richness of that multiculturalism. Okay, well, thank you very much, Tiffany and Andy, for taking the time to talk to us on this really critical issue. And well, I look forward to other opportunities to maybe have other, interviews with you and other members of UVSA in the future.
Thanks
Thank you so much for thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast and talking to you finally after Tiff met you earlier in person, and I got my first conversation today. And yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you in the future and listening to your podcast.
And I think like having these discussions are very important. That's where we can take action too. And just invite us anytime. We'll be here and we can continue talking about this topic. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.